It's draft week. What are the expectations? Are there any surprises coming? Let's discuss it all.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Locked On AZ Cards. Still follow the podcast at the same place. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So it's time. It's draft week. This is one of 4 podcasts that will be done, and then the future will start to finally unveil itself. It's exciting. It's more like, one of my favorite things that I'll go back to every now and then on this podcast is one of my favorite lines from a movie, saying it somewhat tongue-in-cheek about this organization over the last handful of years with the last head coach and GM that were in place. Owen Wilson, Armageddon, just saying, scariest environment imaginable. That's all you had to say. Scariest environment imaginable. When they were talking about the asteroid that was, coming towards Earth. That's not this anymore. And that kind of what it was during draft week, where it's like, what is Steve Keim going to do? And is it going to be for the betterment of the team, or to just prove to everybody, or try to prove to everybody that he's the smartest person in the room, irregardless or irrespective of what the actual impact on the roster will be? And, we've pivoted. Last year was kind of scary because it's fear of the unknown, because we collectively, media members and, fans and everybody in between, have kind of been braced for, oh no, what's going to happen? And then what Monti Ossenfort did was something very therapeutic and necessary for the conscience and subconscious, most likely, of everybody involved that was paying attention to the Arizona Cardinals. Was he executed a draft, again, future pacing here, but he executed a draft that was competent, functional, set the team up for future success, and addressed all needs necessary. And oh boy, Oberto, they had a lot. Everything. They addressed key positions: corner, wide receiver, offensive line, pass rusher. Not one off-ball linebacker was drafted. They brought in Kazir White from Philadelphia Eagles before. Imagine that. So now pivoting into 2024, finally. Oh, and just a little side note. I'm going to be excited to not have to talk about Steve Keim either. And Cliff Kingsbury. Just kind of breaking the fourth wall here. I get a lot of comments. Man, get over it. That's still part of this story. So until they've officially moved on and undid everything that Steve Keim did that negatively impacted the team, it's part of why we're talking the way we're talking. It's part of the reasons of the topics for this podcast. So it's necessary to have as part of the story. And I'm guessing that after this offseason, week 1 of 2024, can finally lay to rest all the Travis Sham mockery that was going on with Steve Keim as GM. But it's still part of the story. So it still needs to be discussed. So, draft week expectations, 2024. This is a fun, I don't think fun's the right word because there's so much pressure on this draft. But it's fun because when it comes down to it, we have no control over it, obviously. We've gone through all the angles. We've gone through all the trade backs. Aren't you proud of me that I've sparingly talked about trade backs? I got a swift kick in the rear. And it's like, hey, listen, talk about something else. Okay, no problem. And I need that. Oh, and there's something coming down the line here where I'm going to be able to interact with you on a more, non-podcast or social media time. Just stay tuned for it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. This is going to be fun. It's going to be franchise altering in some capacity. And you could say that every draft is franchise altering in some capacity, sure. This is when we find out, and every dayers will know this analogy that I use. I discuss how the Cardinals are an elephant walking on a sheet of ice, and we just don't know how thick the ice is at any time or place. We just don't know. Sometimes it seems really thick and it's going to be stable, and sometimes it seems razor thin and it seems like it's going to shatter at any minute. We're going to find out how thick that ice is for the next handful of seasons after this draft, because what it's going to do is set up the true roadmap for how to maintain perpetual relevancy. And what they're going to have to target in free agency next year, at the trade deadline this year, and then after that, the 2025 draft. So the expectations are, there really aren't any except for one. And this is going to sound unfair, and it's going to sound like so much pressure put on one person. But this is infusion of Steve Keim one last time. Monty's got to get it right. And I think that he has, as collective as humanly possible with people, the collective trust of people regarding the best thing for the Arizona Cardinals and having them be in his hands. So if you're a Marvin Harrison Jr. guy, everybody's a Marvin Harrison Jr. guy or gal. But if you're they must draft at 4. If they do, you win. And so do the Cardinals. And if they trade back, the trade back team wins, and so do the Cardinals. The important part is the Cardinals win. They win. And we'll see how everything pans out. But the options that the Cardinals have at such a pivotal point in their careers, in their organization's existence, that is a position this organization hasn't been in. Probably can put a period after that. But Monty has to get it right. You draft Marvin Harrison Jr., you have a good chance of getting it right. Because one situation that won't happen, the aftermath of, one situation that won't happen is, oh yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. was good, but look at all the players. Look at who went 11. Look who went 23. That won't happen. With revisionist history and hindsight is 2020. Because there's so many arbitrary things, whatever. Teams drafting the team's needs, all those things. Well, look at all the great players. We know they're going to be great players drafted after number 4. So that's not, a reason. Well, let's see if they won the trade a year from now. We're never going to know. Because it doesn't matter. And it's other players or other teams drafting players has no correlative to the Cardinals. So Monti Ossenfort decides to go at 4, draft Marvin Harrison Jr., pound for pound the best player in the draft, regardless of position, by many. Or trade back and get 11, 23, and a future first, whatever it is. And I told you I'm going to go light on the trade down scenarios because we know what they are. He's got to get it right. He must get it right. And one qualifier, getting it right doesn't mean the Cardinals win the Super Bowl in 2 years. Getting it right means continuously moving forward. Not shooting oneself in the foot. I hate that cliche. Any step forward, anytime the Cardinals don't take a step forward, damn it, I haven't done this in a while. Anytime the Cardinals don't take a step backwards, that's a step forwards. And that's still correct. So even if this is a boring draft, they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., it's not going to be boring, and they draft, whatever, a corner, Nate Wiggins or Johnny Newton, which is interesting. I'm going to do a mock draft Monday, the final one of 2024 in the last segment. Johnny Newton's looking to drop. This is the wildest just gap. And I asked Eric Eager about this on Friday of last week. Go check it out. He's a wizard. He's so good. The range of where players can go is wild when it comes to all the mock drafts that are going out there. Johnny Newton, if they get Johnny Newton at 27, and then they draft a center in the second round, they draft a pass rusher in the third, and then a running, it could look boring, but boring wins. Bottom line, Monti Ossenfort has to get it right. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. What are the surprises? Anything coming out of the woodwork? Let's go over some options, some things that could be way outside the box, some things that may be, because When you get to draft time, your lens for rational thought has to grow, has to expand, because crazy things happen on draft night. I'll discuss it next as we roll on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every darn day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And so what are you waiting for, man? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. People know that I'm competitive. I've been told that. You think it's true? I compete with myself on this podcast every day. Okay, and the comments, sure. Okay, well, I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. And I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like the classic Monopoly. But now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me why who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store or Google Play. Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Hi. Hasn't it been a wild year? Hasn't it been a wild year? We've been through a lot together. And it's only... this may just be the beginning. Like, the dormancy phase of this organization in relevancy and being fringe playoff team. It's been a long time. And I feel like through this draft, the ground may raise, should raise, but we'll see. Pretty much the Cardinals are an expansion team. You would think about it like that. Starting last year, sure, they had Kyler Murray. So, this isn't exact because they're not an expansion team. But that's pretty much how Monti Ossenfort is looking at this. Through the draft, bring in some free agents, build, compound interest, compound production, and get to a point where there's relevancy every year. So the Cardinals have a couple of key players, Pro Bowlers, Kyler Murray, James Conner, Budda Baker. They have a group of second-year players who played better than rookies that we've seen from the Cardinals in some time. All of them in the top in the first three rounds. I know that Michael Wilson and Garrett Williams were hurt, but the game wasn't too fast for any of them. B.J. Ojolari had a terrible start to the season because he was coming off injury. Paris Johnson Jr. played fine. He played every damn snap at right tackle, a new position for him. So while it's not, they're all Pro Bowlers as rookies, slow and steady wins the race a lot of the time. And now, coming into second year, this is when the explosion could happen. With that, is there anything that could expedite this? And I did a fun segment last week with Eric Eager from Sumer Sports. I asked him, and I posted this question on Twitter too, like, would drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. expedite the process more than trading back and drafting two players in the first round and then maybe getting a first in 2025? Would it expedite the process more, kind of an addition by subtraction scenario, where it's like, you got your guy. You got Trey, and I guess you add Trey McBride to that I just mentioned with James Conner, Budda Baker, and Kyler Murray. Then your receiving core, pass-catching core, is set with potentially two alphas in Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. Very few teams have two fringe alphas in their wide receiver /tight end room. Would it expedite the process more than trading back? It's an interesting conversation because it's counterintuitive thinking that you'd be able to get 3 first-round picks over the next 2 years for plug-and-play guys, you'd think, that could, be more impactful for the Cardinals because they'd be more, quote-unquote, key positions than wide receiver. And I was on that train for a long time, for pretty much the entire offseason. And then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, all right, I've got to have to make a claim here at some point, one way or the other. And I'm on team Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 now, just because he would probably go number 1 overall if the top 3 teams needed quarterbacks and there were no trades allowed. If the top 3 teams didn't need quarterbacks and no trade. Like, he's on big boards. It's either him or Caleb Williams that's 1, and the Cardinals are at 4, and they have the opportunity to draft him. This has nothing to do with, they need the next Larry Fitzgerald, or, they passed on AP and Terrell Suggs. None of it. Because it doesn't matter. None of that matters to this draft. It doesn't matter at all. They need a star. They've got a star. It's their quarterback. They need a star wide receiver for Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald was great, and the teams were terrible. They had 3 or 4 good years with Bruce Arians, and they had 1 or 2 good years with Cliff Kingsbury. They made a Super Bowl 15 years ago. Larry Fitzgerald was great. The teams were awful. More than not. So just because you have a great star receiver doesn't mean you're going to have a great team. Hence was my reason, trade back, get the best, maybe the best pass rusher, the best corner, and then a future first to just stockpile picks for the future. I'm back to Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4. Any surprises? So let's ask this question. And I'm going to try and get a couple guests on this week. I haven't exactly decided what angle I want to go, but one of the questions I will ask is there a world where the Cardinals could be trading back and acquire a player on top of picks? And what had me think about this was, there were reports out that Sean Payton wants to go Wild West and would trade Patrick Surtain to get into the top 4. So if the Cardinals were to trade back to 11, they'd get, or 12, I can't remember, 12, and get Patrick Surtain, 12, and I don't know, another pick this year and a future first. Is that enough to move back from 4? No. But is that a surprise that could happen? Yeah, because the Cardinals need a corner. And they're going to have to pay him in a couple years. But this is different than trading for Hollywood Brown and having to pay him after the 5th year, which obviously they didn't. So in essence, Steve Keim traded a first-round pick for a year and a half of Hollywood Brown. Well, 2 years, but Hollywood Brown was hurt for a large portion of that. Another surprise. Is there a way that Justin Jefferson could be traded for the 4th overall pick? This is the most fun one. I talked about this mid-last season where it's like, all right, the Cardinals will be picking in the top 5. Would you rather have the 4th overall pick or the best wide receiver in football? Arguably. Everybody's got their different opinion on that. I don't see that happening. But is that a surprise that could happen? Especially with Minnesota so desperate for a quarterback. But then it's like, well, why would they trade him and get a quarterback and then give up their number 1 wide receiver and have TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison be the guys that's throwing him the ball? So it's counterintuitive. Is there another guy, could going back to Denver, could Denver offer Patrick Surtain, Cortland Sutton a first this year and a first next year? Would that be enough for 4? I don't think it moves the needle either, but could that be a surprise move on draft night where it's like if Monti Ossenfort gauges Patrick Surtain as a generational lockdown CB1, he's arguably the best corner in the league with him and L'Jarius Sneed. It's like, would that be enough to move back out of Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4? I don't know, but I don't see that being, that's not Monty's MO. Now, if the Cardinals are further along this year than expected, and they're fighting for a playoff spot before the trade deadline, maybe he'll use draft capital then. Maybe we'll see some sneaky business then. I don't see it now. There's so much that we don't know still about this team that taking on a player who's either already making really good money, a lot of money, or is soon to be making a lot of money, I just don't see that as Monty's MO. So that's why, although we saw the trade back and the trade up last year, that served its purpose. And then the trade back in the second round also to get Tennessee's 3rd round pick this year. So Monty only really needs to do that once to yield 11 picks this year and a full fledged of picks next year. And is there any way, this is the final surprise, which would crumble the entire offseason of content, is there any way that Marvin Harrison Jr. goes before the Cardinals at 4? That's the one that kind of sends chills through my bones, because that's not one you account for. So is there a world where, I don't know, a team that's on the fringe that is willing to mortgage a first rounder this year and next year to move up from 14, 15, 16 up into the top 3 to draft Marvin Harrison Jr.? That, when I say, you've watched the draft every day, you're smart people. When I say that is nightmare fuel, that's nightmare fuel. Because then, if that happens, the 4th overall pick cheapens. I guess you can make an argument that it explodes because there's an extra quarterback at 4. But that's automatic trade back for me at that point. So that, the biggest surprise that would immediately impact the Arizona Cardinals on draft night is if Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 2 or 3. And you just don't, Washington's not going to take it. If New England wants to trade back and a team somehow outbids Minnesota or Denver to move up to 3, crazier things have happened. But that would be the absolute. You want the Cardinals to be able to choose for themselves. And that would it would suck. Talking as 10-year-old Alex, that would stink. That would not be fun. So, I don't know. Listen, things can transpire. We don't know if Monti Ossenfort could trade the pick before draft night. We have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days. What I do know is I will be here with you. We will be having a whole lot of damn fun. And chill. Locked on Cardinals. We got mock draft next. This episode of Locked on Cardinals is brought to you by the GameTime app. The GameTime app has everything. It is the one-stop shop for all your ticket needs. That one-stop shop, it's true. But it's not just that. You can get tickets for sporting events, comedy shows, concerts, theater, whatever it is. They've got all that, which is great. But they've got last-minute deals. Save up to 60% buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, what I just mentioned. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Save even more when you choose a section and let GameTime choose the seats. And the best part, seat views. You get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So say you want to go, a Diamondbacks game is a perfect example. So say you're okay, well, let's kind of check out what we got here. Okay, cool. Section 208, row 20. Let's click on that. Let's see what the vantage point will be. Oh, look, all the way on the other side of the stadium. Oh, look, in the outfield. Oh, that could be fun if we're high enough. We're high enough we can see the whole field. GameTime's got you covered for it. You just have to take it. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And I love it. I got Green Day on deck for September. Bought it with the GameTime app. Download the GameTime app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed. We've got 10 segments left until the draft. We did it. We did it. And the crazy part, we have no idea. We don't know anything more than we did from a month ago. No false reports. Nothing. Isn't that interesting? New regime doesn't leak false reports to media members. Doesn't leak false reports because they think they're being smart. It's little things. I implore you to not compare the Arizona Cardinals to any other organization because they're in a different spot. Every organization is in a different spot on their journey. Some are on the precipice. Some are far behind the Cardinals with sustainable success available. Look at this. the Cardinals have 11 picks in 2024. They've got their picks in 2025. They're going to have top 3 or top 4 cap space after this season. They've got their franchise quarterback. They've got their franchise right tackle, who could be left tackle. They've got all young players, and only rookies and Kyler Murray are under contract for next year. That's what a massive overhaul looks like. That's what a reset looks like. It's not even a rebuild. It's a reset. Control-Delete. Control-Delete. With a quarterback. With some defensive leaders. With a great running back in James Conner. So with that, I did 2 mock drafts, okay? And I may do one more on Thursday for funsies, but I'd rather, what I'm toying with is having it be a flat-out Q&A on Thursday for you. Ask all the questions. I'll get to as many as I can. I think I might do that for Thursday because you hear my big dumb face spew out stuff every day. I would like to hear from you. I need to figure out exactly how to do it, but just keep in mind that I'm looking to do that. But barring anything different, these are my last mock drafts of the 2024 year. I did 2 different ones. One, I did solely based on need and which player fell during the mock draft that I did. And the other one was a little outside. It's like how I do my NCAA March Madness brackets. I do one that is every single higher seed wins. Every single higher seed wins. And it's not because I lack vision or it's like, that's not fun. I cashed in one of my brackets this year because of it. It's just fun. But you do chalk. And then the other one is one you do where, you take some chances, you do things like that. So you can kind of see the same here, but it turned out actually really nicely. So let's go to the stock one first. Need. So for YouTubers, you can see it. And for people who are listening, I will read this out to you. So number 4, I didn't do any trade backs. I'm not doing any trade backs. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4. Okay. 27, Johnny Newton's dropping. Interior defensive lineman, Illinois, is looked to be potentially better than Byron Murphy, who's the hot name coming out of Texas. Would shore up the defensive line, would be a set-and-forget player in the interior for the Cardinals. Second round, Zach Frazier, center out of West Virginia. We cannot be in the world witnessing the Arizona Cardinals passing on a center like they did because they said, oh, Rodney Hudson's here. Jaltifrold played great last year, all things considering, especially the left side of the offensive line being as bad as it was. You can have Zach Frazier play left guard a little bit. Maybe he beats out Jaltifrold for the center for the starter role. But the center position is so difficult. And not all centers who get drafted, even in the higher rounds, play 100% of the snaps right away. But having depth on the offensive line as an entity that will yield protection for Kyler Murray is the most important thing. It just is. Zach Frazier, second round. Andrew Phillips, corner out of Kentucky. Now, this guy's a sneaky name. Okay. It's a ball hawk. Likes to hit people. And Kentucky's been better than advertised, just as a team. They're not just a basketball school anymore. They may be more of a football school than a basketball school now, but it addresses a need at 66. I could have taken a bunch of other players. There's a bunch of edge rushers, wide receivers, safeties I could have taken there, but I didn't. Trey Benson at 71, by people I trust the most, say that he's RB1 in this draft. So I trust that. It's a little bit of a reach in the middle of the third round, but they need a running back. And I know that people are like, well, what about James Conner? James Conner's fantastic. He's going to be RB1, okay? He cannot withstand the amount of touches that he's been getting every year. He looks great. You want him to always have that burst, and you don't want to always have to rely on him. We'll see about Michael Carter. We'll see about Amari DiMarcado. I feel like with the amount of draft capital the Cardinals have, drafting a running back is imperative this year. Maybe wait, fine, until the 5th or 6th round. But I think this is the area in the 3rd round where they have those 3 picks to draft one. And then edge rusher Austin Booker was a transfer from Minnesota, I believe. Played really well last year, had almost double-digit sacks. He's great in coverage in short zones. Like, the dude could potentially be an absolute steal for the Cardinals at 90. So that was my first one. And then quickly through the second one, this is the one I had a little bit more fun with. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, Nate Wiggins at 27. So you address corner earlier. You're kind of punting on the interior defensive line here. Zach Frazier, again, I took in the second round. Jalen Wright, another running back, top of the third round from Tennessee. Other people are saying he's the best running back in the draft. So, nailing a running back in this draft, I think is important in the third round. Marshawn Kneeland is going to be an absolute steal out of Western Michigan. The Cardinals get at 71. Cardinals need help off the edge. And I think he'd fit that hole. And then Kyrie Jackson doubling up on corner. This one he's from Oregon, really athletic. To pair him with Nate Wiggins and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Garrett Williams. If you can make the cornerback room a core strength of this team, especially with how pass-heavy the NFL is right now, the Cardinals would be in very, very good shape. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. It's draft week, baby. It's only going to get better. I'll talk to you tomorrow.